Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to the shir. We're going to pick up right away. We're going to get right to it because we got a lot to do today. And thank you, Ariana. Thank you. On the pages that I gave out, it's Daf Kuf Mem Tet. In the Sefer that you have, I actually don't know what page it is. It's just right after the teaching that we did from Likutei Moharan. So if you have the Sefer, what's that? Kuf Mem Bet in the Sfarim. Kuf Mem Bet in the Sfarim. Okay. Okay, everyone found it? Kuf Mem Tet on the handouts and Kuf Mem Bet in the actual Sfarim. All right. Okay, this has been a beautiful, long, continuous Ma'amar Hashalom. Gewalt, we need to grab on to Divrei Torah in the morning like this morning, just grab onto it. Hide within the words of the Torah. They're the greatest protection in the world, so hopefully we'll be able to just stay focused and aligned with the true inner meaning of what it means to be alive today. The last thing that we learned in the small print was not a whole teaching, but a chunk of a teaching from Likutei Moharan, where Rabbi Nachman discussed the need to have compassion on our bodies, not our souls, in this sense, but rather invite our bodies into the world, into the moments of kedusha. I think the example we gave was to look at your feet. Remember, we were looking at our feet last week. Then I asked you to look at your feet later in the day. Did anyone look at their feet at a certain point? Yeah, give up. Yeah? You're looking at feet?
Not only feet.
Not only feet, hands. Yeah, mamash. So that's what we were speaking about last week. And now Rav Kluger he's going straight to, it hit us where it hurts and feel good. Like, I always quote this one line from, it's weird to say his name in his shir, but Bob Marley has a line in his song. It says, one good thing about music is that when it hits, you feel no pain. So the only good thing about Torah is that it always hits and it never feels like pain. It feels thank you. It feels like, yeah, mamash. What's that? True fact, mamash, like a medicine. And this is one of these types of learnings this morning, where Rav Kluger now is going to say to us, let's figure out, why is it that it's hard for us to look in the mirror? Like, why is it that when we look at our physicality, why is it always this stira? Why is it always so confusing? Why is it so difficult? I want to jump right into Rav Kluger's words. You see where it says, Hachet HaKadmon? The primordial sin? Chet HaKadmon gorem la'adam shelo yisbol et atzmo. You know why we have such a hard time not tolerating ourselves? It's not really our fault. It's not really our fault. There's someone to blame. Brother Adam Arishon, okay? He's a shtickle. He's a little bit achrai. We look at Adam Arishon, we're like, you're a little bit achrai. You're a little bit responsible for the fact that I have such a warped way of experiencing myself, of looking at myself. But you got to pay a lot of attention to this. It's not that it's such deep words. It's such a deep concept, what we're going to see. Ka'amu yesh ve'adam ro'eh tmuna. If a person looks at a picture, banire dmuto shelo atzmo. See a picture of yourself, you go to someone's house, they have a magnet from the simcha, and you're on that magnet, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that's what they look at every... No? No, I have a bunch of friends, they have all these magnets for all the simchas, and you're like, it's because they put it up on their thing. You wouldn't necessarily chosen to have that picture of you up in your home, but they took you and put them on their fridge or on their door. You're like, what do I do with that? That's such a weird thing, And you're almost like, oh my God, that's what they think of me. Like that image is what they think of me. And the truth is that quite often people, if we close our eyes and be like, who do you see when you see me? You'd be like, no, close your eyes. Don't look at that image. Don't look at that person. As if Go to a different place. So here he says, כאמור, יש ואדם רואה תמונה בה נראית דמותו שלו עצמו, where you see there's an image of you, וליבו נחמץ, and your heart gets חמוץ, gets sour. אינו אוהב את המראה. I don't like that vision. I don't like what that looks like. האכן כך נראה בעיני האחרים. This is what I look like. This is what other people see when they look at me. חש כי האופן שבו חי ומרגיש את פנימיותו. You sense that the way and the manner that you live your pnimius, בינו לבין עצמו, between you and yourself. And והאופן שבו נגלה ונראה לעיני האחרים, and the way that you are projected and are seen to other people, הינן שתי מציאויות נפרדות לחלוטין. They are two completely different perceptions of reality. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but sometimes when you're so disgusted with yourself inside, you're shocked that anyone wants to be in your presence. You're shocked that anyone has anything to get from you, and you start to wonder, like, wait, hold on a second. Why would this person want to hang out with me when I'm going through my own internal struggle? And they're not crazy. They're not meshuggah. And yet, I would never choose to want to spend time with me if I didn't have to at that moment, right? It's like if you ask me, I'd never voluntarily choose to hang out with me. So Rav Kluger is pointing out here something really, really, and it's so true. Men, women, it's always like this. Teenagers, very much like this as well. Where there's two different things going on.
Especially when you get older, you look at who's that person in the mirror there with all those wrinkles. That old person. Yeah.
At every stage in life, aside from like being a toddler, this thing develops. Now, this is why this is not a shir where we realize, oh my God, we're so dark. He's describing a mahalach that almost anyone that's going through this world and notices a little bit of pnimius realizes, wait, this is shniya achat, zelo. This doesn't add up. Something's wrong over here. Why would you thank God that on Shabbos there's no video. I mean, there is a camera, but thank God that like on Shabbos there's no cameras capturing images or videos, because there's like, we go through so many different things on Shabbos. And personally speaking, I could definitely try to remember so many moments where you have to speak because you have to speak. And malasot, part of the gig, but what was going on inside was a total se'ara, a total storm. But you have to, en malasot, zazman. And you even know that maybe there was a good nikuda that came out with what you said. But you wonder, like, why would anyone want to be around that? And it's such an internal struggle. And this Rav Kluger is going to say, you're not crazy. It sounds like this is what do you call it? When a person is portraying a certain image, but inside it's completely not. What's that? And right, you brought that up before, Nachon, imposter syndrome. This is a very clear teaching explaining to us what are the roots of this. How could this be? Like, what you see should be what you get, right? And it's so complicated, but he has a very clear path here. Next paragraph, I see in this outer, visual of myself, you're not really telling the true story of what's going on with you. You start to sense regarding yourself a detest, ti'uv, v'richuk, and so far from this imposter. The same thing that you'd feel about someone else that you feel is such an imposter as well. You start feeling that about yourself. זו גם מבוכתו בחולפו לנגד מראה, ודמותו נראית לעיניו. This is similar to what happens to a person that gets very embarrassed when they pass by a mirror and they're like, what? What is this? And the other voice, which we're going to try to figure out, is saying, this is you. This is exactly you. There's such tension going on inside. What is going on over here? סובל לא רק מאיך שנראה לעיני הבריות, I'm not just suffering because of how I'm looking like, what I'm looking like in the eyes of the public, אלא גם בהיותו נראה לעיני עצמו, but also, there's no one around, it's me in the mirror, and I can't tolerate what I'm looking at. יש בו התנגדות פנימית אל צורתו החיצונית. I have an inner resistance, opposition, towards what I look like on the outside. טוב לו שבדרך כלל אינו רואה את מראהו. And it's better for a person like this, that generally speaking, you become an introvert, you become a hermit. If you ever post a picture, it's maybe just like from here till here, tons of effects, tons of filters. Batsheva could teach you how to do the whole zach, right? And you're not giving any more than that, because more than that it'd be like, that would be disgusting, right? Meanwhile, you're on that person's fridge, and it's that photographer didn't ask you, okay, get really close, but I just get from here to here, and the whole you's there. You feel so threatened by that full image. What's that? Right. They'll be out of business. I'm sorry. The sweet chevra that do it. Right?
Sign a waiver.
I mean, it's interesting that everything else we're so makpid on, that actually we're not. It's a very interesting, it's a funny thing, you know? The more that I think about it, it's actually pretty insane. That it's...
Thank God we don't.
Huh?
Thank God.
No, and it's good that we do it. It's just, when you think about how everyone's so protective all the time, that Indian is just like, whatever, you know? And hopefully I want people, you know, it's a good thing. I'm saying it's a good thing. It's just, it's crazy that we're totally cool with that, because inside we have no idea what's going on, you know, inside a person. You can see them sitting there smiling at a simcha. Inside they think, I'm never going to feel real amongst the person that I'm hugging, right? Or they're never going to really, if they actually knew the real me, they'd never want to put their arm around me. And that's what's going on in your mind. And that's the moment that moment is captured, right? Not always, sometimes I'm saying. Anyway, the point here is just to say that sometimes, quite often, there is such an internal struggle between the person and the way that they look at themselves. We spoke about this a lot. This is very true. And this is all, remember, in the context of a ma'amar called Ma'amar Hashalom. We want to create a situation that there's actual shalom bayis going on inside of us. That when I see myself, I get an image of myself, I can walk anywhere in the world, and nothing could ever take away from me the sense of serenity when I look at myself, when I look at a picture of me, or when I see myself in the mirror. That would be Gan Eden. That would be Gan Eden. So the question is, obviously, this whole concept of what does Atzmi really mean? And he has his own take on it, Rav Kluger, as to how to choose to look at ourselves. So look at this. By me, it's the next page on the handouts. Lichora. Yesh la'avin et pesher hadavar. We got to understand what's going on over here. Harei kol adam ohev et atzmo. Each person does love themselves to a certain extent. And how do we know this? V'haraya. What's the proof? שנפגע מאוד כאשר מפחיתים בערכו ומתייחסים אליו בזלזול. When someone speaks down to you and hurts your feelings, if you didn't love yourself, then what would you say to the person?
You're right.
More. For sure. Totally, like, absolutely. Then the person would be like, what? I just ripped you. And like, yeah, more. Sometimes you have chevra like that. That's an extreme, okay? But generally speaking, when someone does touch that nakuda inside and they insult us, and what he says over here, mafchit me'erki, those are very important words. That means they lessen from my value, right? Or they attempt to lessen from my value. The proof that I love myself to a certain extent is that it hurts. That's a sign that you don't really detest yourself. It hurts. Keep that in mind. Keep that in your heart, okay? Af im yitkanes az el atzmo ve'yishtok, even if you decide, you know what, I'm going inside, I'm going to be silent, ach betocho yakum להסביר לעצמו שהפוגע אינו צודק כלל וכלל. What's going on in your inner chatterbox? That person doesn't know what they're talking about, right? Now, when you start to say that person doesn't know what they're talking about, that's code word for I love me. You just don't. It doesn't sound like that. I love myself, not in a bad way. I'm saying this in a very like, not only a good way, in a sense, like a proper, a holy way.
Could be denial too.
What's that?
Could be denial too.
It could be total denial. That's not the point. But the point is that you may even somewhere deep and down inside agree with the person, but as long as it hurts you, he says that's proof that you do love yourself and you don't hate yourself and you don't really agree with that person fully. This is bringing up a point. I was working on this piece yesterday from Rav Shlomo on Parshas Dvarim. Mishneh Torah, the last sefer of the Torah, is all basically, Chazal say, tochecha. It's like rebuke, right? Heavy, it's a heavy thing. The Baalei Musar would learn Sefer Dvarim all year long. This is going to even sound weirder. I don't know if the guy was pulling my leg or not, but I once sat next to a former Chaver Knesset, a total freak, okay, at a Shabbaton somewhere. Guys, of course, he's been arrested, places, I'm a Meshuggah guy. And he said to me, and I still don't know till today if he wanted to l'arshim oti, and it wasn't Sefer Dvarim, it was during like the Shabbos before Hanukkah, and he said to me, אתה יודע מה אני עושה כל שבת? כל שבת, לא משנה מה הפרשה, אני לומד עם הילדים שלי ספר דברים. I was like, why? He's like, כי אני יודע שזה מה שמחזיר אותך להיות למוטב. Meaning, Sefer Dvarim is like the sefer that when you read it, it puts you in your place, right? So Rav Shlomo was teaching Al Pi Chasidus, how was Moshe Rabbeinu rebuking Am Yisrael? So he said there's two ways to rebuke someone. And they're both words of meaning. They're both, you could say the same exact words. And one time you could tell someone you were off here. You are off over here. You are off. Look what you did here. But there's another tzad that when you're able to tell someone the real you is so holy and precious, look how unfortunately you made yourself schmutzig in this place. Of course, that's not what you and I would want you to do, right? So the question is, when we look in the mirror, can we figure out to put on the corrective lens where we say, what we see is not what we like, but in a manner that says to us, you don't really want this, you love yourself. That's what it means to have Rahmanis on your body. But sometimes, quite often, the other voice says, look what you did with this gift called you. Look what you did. And we walk around people's fridges and we see pictures and like, look what you just did over there. Or like, you know those eyes can't lie. You see the pain in those eyes. You know that can't be the MS. Why would you want to be, let's figure out a way that those eyes never appear again. It's two different ways, right? So it's a lot of deep stuff over here. So Rav Kluger says, Im ken minayin ba hamachshava ha'atzmit ha'osa oto parud me'al atzmo. Where, this is so deep, where does this machshava atzmis, this inner way of thinking, this inner projection of thought, where does it come from? Which separates you from you. Vegoremet lo lityaches le'atzmo be'ofen chaser erech. Which causes you to feel like you're valueless. What's a better word? Worthless. Where does this come from? How could it be? Like, how could I be two different people? Well, the real, right? How could that be? Where does this come from that I'm able to actually be both at the same time? Madua biyoto beno leven atzmo. Why is it when I'm alone with myself, Yarich et po'alo yafeh, I could be like, you know what, I did something good over here. But then, ve'ilu im yikabel milah tova me'et achirim, yitnatzel ve'yomar shezo eina ko tzodeket. But when someone compliments you on the thing that you actually feel good about, when it's just you and you alone, and then someone comes and compliments you on that thing, that when you were alone with yourself, you took pride in, what's the natural response? No. Bidiuk.
It's weird.
Now, I've been so makpid on this yesterday, since we started learning this. And anytime, it's like such a deep avoda. I'm telling you, this is so bizarre, why it's so hard to look at someone in the eyes, and when they tell you something nice about you, to look at them and say, thank you.
You also feel it. Like
to really feel it. Bidiuk. You're right. You're right. Not just to say it, 100%. That's a much harder avoda. But it has to start by saying thank you. It has to start somewhere. But to also, it's very true what you're saying. To also really say, to inside, thank you. Yes. But he's describing, he mentioned this in the beginning of the Mimer, that it's such a weird thing, that so often people come up to us and say, you know what, that thing that you did and everything, like, I can't believe that you did this. It was nothing. If I was really, if I was really holding, that would be nothing. I'd be doing this all day. And it's such a trap. He's trying to detect the trap. How could it be that if it was just me alone with myself, and I noticed, wow, that was an amazing thing, that I could say, that was pretty cool. But when someone else points it out to me, my default is to shut that up. In the name of, I don't know,
humility.
False humility, or what else? In the name of, right, like, but the
You don't want to boast about yourself.
right, but
It's a fear of sounding conceited.
it's a fear of sounding conceited, nachon.
Comparing yourself to someone else is better, and then it doesn't look as.
Always, when you go to the compare beat, that's very, very chazak. When you go to the comparison place, and Rashi doesn't make it easier for us, because Rashi and Noach does that, regarding, Noach ish tzaddik. Everyone's like, the first time the Torah says about someone, they're a tzaddik. Boom, right away, all of Chazal are slamming it. If he was in the door of Avraham, it wouldn't be a tzaddik. So the Torah doesn't make it that much easier for us, because the Torah does that whole comparison, Mishagas, right then and there, right away. But there's a lot more. It's like when it's just me, and I'm thinking it's my private domain. Something goes outside, then someone has an opinion on it. I don't trust it. It's coming from outside. So I don't really trust it, even if it's the greatest thing in the world. So my natural tendency is to say, to suppress it. Right, suppress it. So to start saying thank you. Like, I was learning this yesterday, I was thinking about this last night, I was with the chevra from your old stomping grounds. So they said to me, they started singing, they said, we want you to know. It was a very beautiful moment. They said, we want you to know, a few years ago, at our Seudah, we sang one nigun for 3 hours, he said to me. 3 hours. And he said, and the Rav said, and join me. The Rav is such a siskite. He was playing guitar also. So he said, and if you know it, come and join. Right? And he starts singing, and the Chavah starts singing, ay, da, 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 ay, 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 right? One of my nigunim. And I was wondering, as they were singing it, I was already saying, what is going to be my response when they stop singing? And I knew we were going to learn this today, right? And the whole time I'm thinking, and then at a certain point I said, the best response would be for you to right now shut up, shut the chatterbox, and start singing with them, right? And I started singing with them. And then at the end, I was so lost in the nigun, so I said, it's a gewalt nigun, huh? And then I said to them, if I thought that that was mine, and it wasn't ours, then it'd be pretty weird to say. And what a gewalt nigun that is, right? But I think it's ours, so I could say it's a gewalt nigun, right? But I think the deeper thing would be to say, the deepest would have been to say, that's my nigun and it's a gewalt. But you got to be really, you got to be around people that are learning Rav Kluger all day long to understand that's like a tikkun of dibur. That's like a tikkun of dibur. But these things happen to us all the time. You're definitely going to get a compliment today about something. Everyone's going to get some kind of good word about something at a certain point if you interact with people. Oh, so good to see you. That's a compliment. You realize that? Good to see you is a compliment. But we start doubting, that's just a figure of speech. What could you do with that? Yeah.
The avoda is to say thank you and internalize it for ourselves, or to say Chasdei Hashem. Recognize, wow, everything that I'm able to do in this world, and your ability to perceive that as something positive, that's all from Hashem. Mm-hmm. It's channeling through me, but they feel very different.
So I think that's the destination, but I think that, and that's definitely the last stop. There's a stop before that we have to go through, because that may still be deflecting and not dealing with.
So true. Yeah.
Right.
It's true though, 100%, because that's the emet la'amito. Like that's the highest form of truth. But on an avoda level, that's not the avoda. That the avoda has to go through another tachana. There's another stop here on this train, and it's not so pashut. What's that? It's a shtickle bypass. Yeah. It's a shtickle bypass, and you gotta go through it. Yes.
Along similar lines, like if I just understand that this is how this other person's experience coming from me landed on them. And that's just what it is. It was a positive experience for them and Baruch Hashem. But it's not necessarily an objective critique about myself. I mean, it's a good feeling, and you would say yes. But to accept every compliment as absolute truth seems to me to be problematic.
Mm-hmm. And the question is why?
The question is why? It's because we're always trying to be better, and the same way that we hear good things, we also hear bad things. And
yeah, not necessarily to our faces as much.
Well, depends.
I don't know where you're hanging out, but you have to move. You're in the Ir Atika, right?
Yeah. Me? I'm in Tina. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I don't know. Just come hang out. No. I'm not saying that everyone here is just saying good things to each other all day long, but I'm just saying, like, you'll probably be around. You're generally going to be around people. When you're around people that you choose to be around, hopefully the people you choose to be around are more, they're more likely to say a compliment to you than something bad. But the real emes of it is that actually doesn't really matter, because we're with ourselves more than we're with anybody else, right? And the question is, what are the compliments or the disses that are happening in that relationship when I look in the mirror?
Also, why do the bad comments go in so much quicker?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah.
I think because we believe them more than the good ones.
I mean, it doesn't have to be an unusual situation. Like, let's just say you parked someplace and you were visiting somebody and you didn't know you grabbed somebody's parking place, and the person goes out and they start telling you what they think of you taking their parking spot.
Right. Never happens in Eretz Yisrael. But Shelley, you want to say something?
In modern psychology, it says the reason that you would hear more the negative from people is because it's a survival mechanism, because good is great, but we need to know the bad. We need to know the danger. We need to know what's coming up.
Yeah.
We need to know what people think to protect ourselves.
Negativity bias.
So, yeah.
The what? The
Negativity bias.
Yeah.
That we're always we're on guard.
We're on shpilkas all the time. Nachon. So sorry.
If what you were saying before, like if we won't take compliments because we don't believe it, I think it's also showing how much we value ourselves, because really then our own judgment is the only thing that ultimately matters.
I'm sure it's so deep what you said, but I need to understand it better. Yeah, can you say I know.
So just what you were saying before about like how it's very hard to take compliments, because when people say it, there's a part of us that's like, I don't really trust their judgment. Who's the person who doesn't trust their judgment? Me. So we're saying that actually the way that I view myself is the most important. That like we have the final say. So it's like bashing ourselves, but it's also showing ourselves that we value our own judgment of ourselves over
there.
else.
Can that lead to the beginning of what he said over here, that's a proof that I actually do love myself? So that's very good. It just doesn't the thing is that we don't really interpret it like that, even though that is what's happening. Our interpretation of it is something else. It's a double negative, which of course is a plus, but we get stuck in like the minus between the minus and not realize that you just flipped it over. Nachon. So Rav Kluger is going to explain why we're all meshuggah, okay? Like, why can't it just be like you see how hard we're working on trying to understand? Like, why can't it just be that like let's try it right now. I'm so happy that each of you got up and came to the shir this morning. That means so much to me and to the shul. With the, now, but it's the truth.
Well, thank you.
You're so full of yourself. It's unbelievable. You see, that's Olam Hazeh. What just happened is like basically.
I was kind of kidding.
That's part of it, exactly, because you were also kind of kidding. I know, like that's part of like what could this be? What God intended between human beings to relate like this to each other and to ourselves? And the answer is no. When did what? And go back to the beginning of Shir. Who's a little bit responsible for this? Adam Arishon. You notice that I'm putting blame on Adam and not on Chava. It's unbelievable, right? But look what Rav Kluger says. Shorshei advarim neutzim bechet hakadmon. Nautz means it's like nautz. What's that?
Like stuck in there.
Stuck in to the first primordial sin. Reshit Yimei Haolam, the beginning of the world. Yesh machshava mesuyemet shelefamim hi achen meuchedet im klaliyut hanefesh. There are thoughts sometimes that are completely unified and united with the all of me, the all of my soul. And when that happens, like when I have a certain thought, a holy thought, a beautiful thought, a positive thought, and it encompasses the all of me, every aspect of me, as Yehudi shalem beshalva, I'm complete, I have shalom bayis. And what am I complete with? What am I inherently filled with? Serenity. Again, when I have a positive, beautiful thought about myself that fully captures me, these moments maybe they happen more often than I'm aware of, but they happen, right? They happen. I have a thought, and the all of me, he says, Klalius HaNefesh is code word for like Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai, Yechida, all the aspects of the soul, all the different midos, everything about me is enwrapped in, that's me. And it's beautiful, and it's gewalt. And like all the darts of cynicism and sarcasm are not shot through, right? It usually happens when you have a precious moment when your child wants to display love to you. Like those are big moments where like all of you is captured in that your child on their own bechira wanted to come and opened up their heart and soul to you and feel safe by you. Do you feel bad about yourself when your child feels that they run to you? It's the greatest thing in the world. You start to cry when they stop running to you, right? Like Rav Shlomo once said, when some woman came to him and she said, I can't take it anymore. My kids, at night, they cry for me throughout the night. I could barely sleep. And he said to me, I'm blessing you to remember every second they hear their cry, that they're not going to cry for you one day, and chas v'shalom, they maybe cry and go to someone else. So when they cry for you, like as hard as that is, like take that in for a second. So that's a very easy thing to detect and say, that's a moment of like, I have such shalom bayis inside of me that my child chooses to come to me, and we share that moment together. Those are moments like that. And he says, V'az ha'yehudi shalem b'shalva. Sameach, I have semcha because I makir be'erko. I recognize my self-worth and my value. This is what I'm created for. I'm meant for this, right? Halgashato hativ'it, his natural feeling, v'sichlo, and the intellect, mishulavim lemahut achat. They're combined to becoming one essence, one shared objective, right? Again, hargashato hativit, this natural feeling that I have, and that this intellectually, this adds up to me to be a good thing. It's all one. I'm fully consumed by the experience, which produces an amazing thought. No one can tell me anything from the outside that would make me think or feel otherwise about the moment that I'm in. There's nothing that can come from... And why? Because I am so not looking at myself or experiencing this moment from the outside. I'm experiencing fully from the inside, from the inner intellect and the inner emotion. That's the ultimate shalom bayis that happens inside a person. That's shalva. That's serenity. I hate that word. Because that's but. מאז חטא אדם הראשון, יש והמחשבה ההיא שרה הצידה, להסתכל על הנפש מבחוץ, מן הצד. From the time that Adam ate, no, of course Chava didn't, Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, from that moment on, what began to take place is that I started thinking about myself, not from myself, but from the outside, in. Minatzad, or milamala, or from above to below, or from the side in, but not looking at me from within into me. Not like that at all. תנועה פנימית זו מביאה את האדם לחוש עצמו דחוי להתבייש. What does this bring a person to feel? Rejected, embarrassed, להתייחס אל עצמו בזלזול, and to degrade oneself. Do you understand what he just said over here? This is a very deep concept. He said from the moment that Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, what did he stop doing? He stopped being. And what did he start doing? Let's give another word. He started thinking. Thinking from the outside. Reacting, looking, and processing himself from the outside and not from within. And when that happens, when I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and that's how I look at myself, when I look at myself in the mirror, is that an outer experience of looking at myself or an inner? Outer. And what happens when you're looking at yourself from the outside? Judgment. And immediately. The first thing we do when we look at a mirror is we judge whether we like what we see or don't like what we see. But that's constantly happening to ourselves about thoughts as well, not just visuals. We think about ourselves like that all the time. From the outside in. This happens all the time. This began when Adam HaRishon ate from the tree. How do we know this? כפי שלפתע ראה אדם הראשון את עצמו מן הצד. That's how man started to see himself also, from the side. And what was the chiddush that he brought to the world right after he ate and began looking at himself from the side? ונתחדשה בושה בעולם. Shame and embarrassment came into the world. מאז ואילך נמוגה הטבעיות. From that moment on, being natural, conducting myself in the most natural way, namog. Namog means like melted away. Started fading away. Now I want to tell you the deepest Torah in the world. The Ishbitzer says, the Man Shilach says this, it is so deep. He says that the sin of Adam HaRishon was not the eating from the tree of knowledge. The real sin was that he thought that after you eat from the tree of knowledge, that you're done. Meaning the sin was busha. The sin was you think God is that shallow that after you make a mistake, that you become the mistake. That's real sin. That's real sin. The real Avera in this world, in the pnimius of it, there shouldn't be a hatter, by the way. I want you to hear it from the deepest depths, not from the outside. From the outside, it's like, oh, he said that. Our Averas aren't really Averas, just the guilt is the Avera. Obviously, that's kindergarten. What I'm saying to you is university of Hasidus stuff. It means like this. What is an Avera? What does that word mean, Michal? Avarta. That means you crossed over to somewhere else. An Avera, where you cross over to somewhere else, where are you crossing from? From in to out. That's a real Avera. I'm crossing over. Ani avarti lemakom acher. If you do an Avera, Chalila, but inside you know it's not what you wanted to do, and the Ribono Shel loves me, and I'm going to do it better and better and better, it's not really, at the end, you realize it wasn't really an Avera like we understand Averot. A real Avera is when you're conscious of the fact that the way that you start thinking about yourself is similar to the way that Adam HaRishon started experiencing himself and thinking about himself after he ate from the tree of knowledge, where he started hiding. And he started, and Busha was brought into the world.
Kind of. I'm just wondering then how to stay focused on realizing where the biflim. Like if I
that's
like my whole parenting
that's
class
basically
is all like, if you're yell at your kid and then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, that's not fair. Okay, I made a mistake. I know I don't want to talk
it's
to you
bad,
about that.
right?
It's bad. I'm working on myself.
Right.
I'm trying.
Right.
As opposed to I'm yelling at you because you did bad, and that's the way parenting is.
So this is a language over here. What we're trying to discover is a language of exactly of your question. That's your question. The question is, wait a second. So how do I not run to? How do I? This is going to sound crazy. How do I fix the chet of Adam Arishon? That's really what.
Also, when does it begin? Because it doesn't.
He's gonna speak about this right now. Actually, about that question. Look, קודם החטא היה גוף מאוחד עם הפנימיות. Before the sin, the body, the physicality, was united and one with the pnimius. What's pnimius? Neshama, soul. כתינוק טהור, שמדוע יתבייש? Like, why should a baby ever have busha? Why should a baby have embarrassment? Right? מדוע יתבייש? היה זה פשוט וברור שהעולם נברא למען ישראל. It was always clear. This whole world was created for Am Yisrael. בדמותו בתבניתו של יהודי, נשמה בגוף. In the image and in the template of a yid, a soul and a body. גוף כפי שהוא, like us. This world wasn't created for us to cease being bodies and just walking souls. For that, you have Shemaim, you have Malachim. This world in its purpose was meant for people with bodies to live in harmony. That's actually the purpose, right? I know that doesn't sound like a chiddush. It's an amazing chiddush to many people. That the world as we see it, that's what it was intended. It was like we have this feeling of like God created man, we messed up, and then we're just struggling to be the best type of human beings that are always going to err. They're always going to be bad. Zelo kacha. That's bichlal not it. Like David Sachs likes to mention all the time, if Gan Eden was so perfect before man was even involved in any mishigas, then what in the world was a snake doing there? Who created that snake? Us and our averas? Our ego tells us, our messed up, twisted ego tells us that we created the snakes in our life. And it's such sheker, because if you just look at the psukim, then you'll start dashing, no, ein mukdam u'ucher b'Torah, really? This is the right? You could be such a self-persecuted yid that I'll the drush of saying ein mukdam u'ucher b'Torah, that there's no chronological integrity to the Torah. Really, the snake only showed up after man ate from the tree of knowledge. It was us that brought the snake. No, Shmendrik, the snake is what told you. The snake is the one that introduced you to the tree of knowledge. Who placed the snake in there? You? No. The Ribono Shleilam. But again, what he's trying to say over here, this world, the way we are right now, as human beings, with a body and a soul, it was intended for us to perceive godliness and to live in the ultimate state of oneness, kacha, kmo she'anachnu achshav, meaning in this template, right? One time Rabbi Nachman was speaking about Yerushalayim to his Chassidim, Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim. So and he was speaking about the beauty of Yerushalayim. So one of his Chassidim, I don't think it was Reb Nassan, I don't think it was one of the other Talmidim, said, Rebbe, you're talking, like, Yerushalayim Shalmala? Like, that's what you're talking about? He said, no, I mean Yerushalayim with its apartments, with its buildings, with its parks, with its streets. Here, this world. Kmo shezeh achshav. Right? En beged, now look back in here, this is very deep. En beged ki en busha. A baby does not need, they need it because they make it cold, but they, generally speaking, a child who hasn't gotten lost and confused in this whole thing.
The best look is naked baby with.
Our kid's naked.
In the bath, right? All the time.
En busha, he's saying, because they haven't yet entered that realm of busha, of covering
Even
covering
when
up.
they do, it's our job to teach them privacy, respect, tzniut, as opposed to busha.
Nachon, bidiyuk, but that's a big difference.
It's huge. It's terrifying.
100. No, but that's the secret of. I think the secret of the pnimius of tznius for girls is exactly that nekuda. And Bina and I talk about this all the time. What's that? What you just said.
Just the difference of tzniut and covering up because it's yours and it's private, as opposed to embarrassment. That
Busha, yeah. But it's a world of a difference. En beged ki en busha. Ach, garam achet. But what did sin cause? שהנשמה הטהורה מביטה מלמעלה על הגוף הכושל. But what did sin cause? That our soul is like observing us from above, looking down at our bodies and saying, oh, you messed up again. Two different entities. There's me, the body that does things in this world. There's this soul that sometimes is in the driver's seat, but sometimes I don't let it be in the driver's seat and it messes things up. And then my vision of the full picture of me is my soul from above looking, being like, oh, Nebuch, and like apologizing on my behalf to Hashem. I tried, that he didn't listen. Even though it's the same person, you realize what I'm talking about. That's sometimes the imagery we have of ourselves. The neshama apologizing to God, not asking for mechila, because the neshama doesn't do any averas. The body does. Saying, I'm sorry, I tried. He just wouldn't let go of it. He wouldn't listen. אך גרם החטא שהנשמה הטהורה מביטה מלמעלה על הגוף הכושל, ואז הגוף נחבא ומבקש להימלט מבושה הסולד מעצמו. And then we get so full of shame and embarrassment that we begin to hide. We do the same thing Adam Arishon does. We hide. Huh? Soled means, no, soled מעצמו means to lislod. It's like a, huh? Yeah, it's like I'm I think it's right. I get disgusted with me. So what am I going to do? I'm going to start hide as another identity, or something else, or hide behind a million things. Rav Kluger said to us last week, you can even hide. Remember what he said? What's that? You can hide in the base medrash. You know, one of the greatest things, I think I shared this with you, that Rav Bravender used to do to certain guys in the yeshivas, that he'd throw them out. The greatest learners, at a certain point, when they started hiding, and he could see they were hiding in there, he threw them out. It was unbelievable. It's like, these are the guys that actually were learning. These are the guys that actually did come to Sdarim. But at a certain age, it was a certain time, and he threw them out. Ravender was so sharp with this Indian. So he says, and we're just going to do one last paragraph. Ze klal pashut. Kodem achet, uleachar achet, enam shinuyim bazman. These are not differences on a time level. Ela shnei matzavim hakayamim tamid banefesh. These are two experiences that are simultaneously taking place in our souls as we're in our experience in this world as we speak. Like when we read in the Torah, there's there's before the sin, then there's a skuva that's after the sin. Which one are we? Rav Kluger says, we're both right now. These are two experiences that are taking place simultaneously. That's the real chatterbox. That's the real mishigas that's happening inside of us. But only thing is, ela shematzav kodem achet, but the matzav of what you asked for, kodem achet, when there's no need for busha, ganuz yoter. It's more concealed. V'yesh lecholtzo ulegalato, and it must be redeemed. It must be extracted and revealed. Ve'ilu matzav ha'le'achar achet, but that world of busha that we find ourselves very much, that place of self-detest and disgust, and not being able to look at myself, hino matzav ha'kayam tamid bagalut ba'ofen galui. That piece is always there and is always revealed. I don't have to work hard in extracting that piece. That's always in front of me. That I always see. I usually relate to that much more easily, right? That's the other one, the matzav of kodem achet, that still exists in me. I'm not always embarrassed, but those moments like we described before, when you have shalvat hanefesh, when you were consumed by one big thought and feeling, that made you feel so proud to be you, those moments are much more rare than the other moments which are la'achar hachet. And the avodah is detecting the moments in my life that represent kodem hachet. I always say, pin drop. Whatever you have to do to drop a pin right there. Drop a pin right there. Because you're gonna deny its existence in a few minutes. You're gonna deny it and be like, that was just a fleeting one. That wasn't real. And you have to pin drop, and then you do another pin drop, and the more the moments like that take place, the more that I mamach connect the line with all the dots, and that becomes hopefully what we call mamash yetziah migalut legeula. That's mamash yetziah migalut legeula. Kasher Yehudi megale mitocho he'ara. When a Yid is able to reveal from within himself this he'ara, this enlightenment. הווי אומר שמתנוצצת מתוכו דרגת קודם החטא הגנוזה בפנימיותו. What he's basically saying is, when you have those moments, when you have shalvat hanefesh, when you have serenity in the soul, and you're one with your thought about yourself and your feeling about yourself, drop a pin. You know what it's called? It's called before the sin. And before the sin means before Adam ate from the tree. You can also call that moment an Eitz HaChaim moment, if you want. Whatever works for you, but that's really what it is. It's an Eitz HaChaim moment. Azay na'asa shalem u'melukad b'kol chalachav. You just become so melukad. You become completely. What's the right word for melukad? Afuch. Melukad means alakati. I gathered in everything together, and now it's all weaved together. Sorry? Yes, fully integrated, the whole picture, fully integrated from all of me, and I end up living a different life. I'm not looking at myself anymore from the side. I become one unit to serve my Creator. The all of me becomes one with serving my Creator. Beram, mi shena'asa naful be'etyo shel chet, mit'oreret bo habata min hatzad u'kedilalan. But the opposite happens, is that right after not after I made a mistake. We make mistakes all the time. But right after I made a mistake, and that begins to dictate to me who I am, I lose that moment, and I start looking at myself from the side or from above. But I don't look at myself from within. And next week, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to have an invite, Lama ta'amod b'chutz. Come inside the house. Why? And we're gonna continue to develop this beautiful, beautiful mamar. Just a quick note, this Sunday morning, there won't be the regular shir, but there really will be the shir, because basically everything we've been learning on Sunday mornings connects to what we're having here this Sunday morning upstairs. You saw the flyers and everything? It's going to be a very important morning of the holy righteous tzadikot from Beyadayim Shelanu that are putting together another event, which I believe in with all my heart and soul, about Avodah Ivrit. And that's going to be Sunday morning, 9 o'clock upstairs. So the shir, probably an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, probably like an hour and a half whole thing. And of course, there'll be nash, there'll be food. So
Very interesting.
yeah. So no, therefore it's a no-brainer. All right, good Shabbos, everyone.